Hello everyone, this is Amanda from That Panda Life, and today is, at least for me, a very long awaited video. I have not posted a video since back in March, and for that I really apologize. There was just so much going on for me in this spring semester that I didn't have time to even plan properly, let alone try to show you guys what I was doing. So it just didn't happen. I had intended to get a June plan with me video out, but again, life happened and it, just didn't make it. I have previously done plan with me's in my Happy Planner Trendsetter. I have fully switched over though to a bullet journal. It just offers a whole lot more flexibility. It can do everything, I can make it do everything that I need it to do. I can put all sorts of things in there that I need on a regular basis instead of having things in multiple places. And I'll show you exactly where that comes in a couple of spreads. So my theme for this month is kind of this honeycomb / bee theme. And I got this from Caitlin's Corner back in May. She did a somewhat similar theme, and this is where I got the idea. So there's a lot of hexagons. There's a lot of like warm brown shades like this one here. I'm using a Crayola Supertips in this like caramel brown color. There's a lot of that, and I'm really excited with how this all turned out. As for the other products that I was using here, for the outline of the hexagon, I was using my Sakura Pigma Micron pen in fine liner, in a 05. Then for the actual lettering, I used one of my Tombow Fudenosuke. I think that's how everyone says it. But I used that pen for the actual lettering to make it a little bit thicker. And then lastly, I'm coming in and highlighting those letters just to make them pop a little bit more with my Zebra Mildliner in this kind of warm yellow. It's not the super bright yellow, it just seemed a little too yellow to me. So I'm using that Pigma Micron in an 05 again to draw in just this little bee. I'm not super creative and artistic, so this is the bee that you get. I think it turned out really cute and just really simple. You get the point. It's supposed to be a bee. Now this spread took some time. As you can see, I outlined everything because it took a long time, and I'm actually going to skip over all the drawing over those in pen because it took forever, and I don't think you really want to see me just tracing a bunch of hexagons. The biggest thing was getting the spacing just right so that it was something that, so each hexagon was something that would be functional and I would have space to write what I needed to write in it, but then also that I could fit all 31 days. And it just, really it started off with some guesswork and then it worked out, so I went with it. I will leave below the dimensions and what dots I was using in case you want to recreate something like this in your bullet journal. I'm using that same set of pens, the Pigma Micron in an 05 for the outlining, and then the Crayola Supertips for that kind of drop shadow. And the reason that I did that drop shadow was because the hexagons kind of zigzag, and it gets really difficult without that to see which days are in the same week. So that visually helps me out a little bit. Then for the dates, I'm just highlighting a little box in the corner with that same Zebra Mildliner so that it has a little place for the number that I'll go in a minute to fill in. This spread took a while, guys, and I really wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, but looking at it now, I think it turned out really, really nice, and it has a very orderly look to it that I always appreciate, so I'm very proud of myself on this one. I generally go in, and anytime I'm doing lettering of any sort, I realize this is not like super fancy hand lettering, but anytime I do any sort of lettering, I like to sketch it out with a pencil first because I'm notorious for not spacing things out very well. So that's what I did here with the letters for July, and then I went over them in my Tombow Fudenosuke pen again. All of the outline, the writing, and the numbers, those are all done with that same Pigma Micron pen. I put down the highlighter for the numbers first, by the way, because these fine liner pens, these Pigma Micron pens, they smear so bad. So you have to wait a while for them to actually dry if you want to go in with any sort of other color. Just a little pro tip there. You will be so incredibly disappointed with yourself if you either don't wait for them to dry or you don't put down your color first. I've screwed up a couple spreads doing that before. Last thing I'm going to do for this is I'm going to add in a couple bees with their little trails. The bees just make me really happy, and they've got little, little smiley faces, so I continue to put those in a few of my spreads here. So the last thing that I'm going to do before we move on to the next spread is I'm going back to color in that bee on the very front page. Remember, like I said, you want to wait for your Micron pens to dry, otherwise they will smear something fierce and you'll be so sad. It's a sad day when you smear in your bullet journal. So my next spread is something I'm kind of trying out. I haven't done this before, but I am on summer break, so I have a little bit more time to think, I guess you could say. So what I'm doing is I'm just numbering straight down the middle of my page, and I'm putting a number for each day in July. Then on the left side, I'm going to have a gratitude tracker, I guess you could call it a tracker. I'm just going to list out one thing that I'm grateful for every day, and then on the right side, it's going to be something good that happened that day. Again, tracing out my letters first in pencil, and on this one, I'm really glad I did, because right about now is where I pause and I realize gratitude doesn't really look right. So I'm Googling how to spell gratitude, and it is, in fact, with a T, not a D. Keep that in mind if you're writing this out. If I had made a D, I would have been a little upset. But I did check that before I put it in ink, which you really always should if you're maybe not the best speller. I generally do okay, but there's just times where I'm like, you know what, that did not look right. So gratitude on the left, and one good thing that happened each day on the right. And I really like my spreads to look just nice and clean and neat, so I do like to put in these really crisp lines to separate things out. And then of course, we got to add a little bee on there. Just a happy little bee. I mean, it's gratitude, and one good thing, there's got to be a little bee going on. I decided to use his little trail, the little dotted line for a trail, to be the border for the page, and I'm going to end up following that onto the next page as well. This next spread is something that's going to be really specific to me. Most people probably aren't going to do something like this, but if you have something where you're scheduling things for the month, this might be a good idea. I work with an animal rescue, and my biggest contribution is scheduling volunteers to make sure that when we have adoptions on the weekend, that we have people there to do those adoptions. So this is our August schedule, and as you can see, I traced out my letters again. I'm not the best at hand lettering, so please don't judge my letters too awfully much. I think it turns out decent. I'm using my Tombow Fudenosuke pen again. This is also where I kind of made a little mistake. A lot of times when I trace out letters, if my spacing is off, I will keep that in mind, and I'll just maybe shift it one direction or the other. I thought I did that well enough on here, and it's off screen, so thankfully you can't see how horrible it was. But right here is where I went through and I used an old bullet journal with some extra pages, and I just cut out a piece and glued it down over the top in that corner. Can't really tell, but that's the idea. That's a trick you can use if you do make a mistake. If you have another bullet journal lying around that has the same kind of paper, you can cut it to size and tape that in there. I used my Tombow dual-sided tape to do that so that it's really clean and less noticeable, at least for you guys in the video. So we do adoptions every weekend. We do Saturday and Sunday. Sundays, it's every other weekend. So I do go through and I just make a box for each day that we have adoptions. And I send out an email, and then I get emails back saying people's availability, and I just fill it in. So it's just how I make my schedule. And as I'm going through the month and I get these emails kind of trickling back, a lot of times I used to write them on like a post-it, and I put it here, I put it on a little piece of paper, and I put it there. It would get lost. Whereas if I put it in my bullet journal and I have it all together, it doesn't get lost nearly as much. And I can, I can keep things together, and I can keep my sanity, because it would get a little overwhelming. So once again, there's a bee. I'm connecting his little trail to the trail from the other page so that it all goes together, and I think it turned out really cute. This next page is actually the page right before I'm going to start my weekly spreads. So I like to just have a list of happenings for the month. So this is my July happenings page, and it's really just the big events, like, oh, you went to dinner with so-and-so on this day, or you had a dentist appointment, things that kind of stand out a little bit more than I went to Target 3 times this week. That's not really a happening. It's a big deal, yes, but I don't need to put it on the calendar so much. So this is just a page where I go through and I've listed out. If there's a day that nothing happened, then I don't put that day even on there. So there are definitely days that get skipped on my July happenings page. This page is more hexagons. So we skip that as well so that you don't have to watch me just draw out a whole bunch of hexagons. But this is going to be my bills for July, and I like to keep track of what I've paid, what my balance is, what the minimum was, when it was due, all those kinds of things. So that's what I use this page for. So I'm not going to fill this in, there's a little bit of privacy here, but each hexagon will be a different bill, and I'll fill it in as I go through and I pay those bills. Now this is probably the most used spread that I have in my bullet journal. This is my weekly spread, and I like to put along the top kind of an events bar, and then down on the bottom is where I have my daily sections where I can put what I'm doing for each day and be a little bit more detailed. I do like my spreads to be really crisp and clean, so I use a ruler a lot. I know some of the bullet journalers, some of the other Bujo people out there, they don't use rulers as much. They do a lot of freehanding, which I think looks really nice when they do it. I think it has a really organic element to it. I just can't do it. So I do use a ruler. I think it works for me. In the top left here, I have my month at a glance, just all the dates, so I know what day falls on what date falls on what day. And again, you saw me put that highlighter down before I started writing on it because I don't want it to smear. This whole spread, I'm using that same Pigma Micron fine liner in the size 05. That's pretty much what I use for all of my outlining because it's just a really nice bold size, and then I a lot of times will use something smaller like an 02 or an 03 as I'm actually filling in my pages. This top section here is my events section, so I highlighted across the top, and I'm going to go back in once that dries a little bit and write in the days of the week. And then here is where I'm splitting up the rest of my spread into the days of the week. So each section will be a different day, and that very bottom right corner is going to be a special little like weekly to-dos, things that I need to try to get done this particular week. I'm using that same zebra Mildliner in kind of a warm yellow color for this. It's a really nice yellow. The other yellow I think is a little too yellow, if that makes sense. This one worked out really perfect for that kind of bee and honey theme that I was trying to go for. So the last thing I'm gonna have to do here is put in the days of the week up along the top of my events bar and then all throughout the spread, and then I will be all done. One of the reasons why this video took so long to come out is because I was kind of shifting my technology, and there was a learning curve here. So trying to get all the technology to work together and figure out how I could put it together to show you a process that took over an hour, it just took some time and some finessing. So let me know what you think about this style of video versus the last videos that I've put up. Please subscribe if you are interested. And as always, thank you for being all about that panda life.